We're going to be talking about urban management, urban tree management just a bit, but just so you know as well, with regards to the extreme weather conditions as of late, right, uprooted trees and all that, well, it goes to show that our trees are actually aging as well, right?
They are.
Not just as humans, but of course trees as well. Trees that are 50 years old and above and stuff like that. Now, that particular tree might pose serious threats, not just to you, but to other living creatures out there. It could be, you know, it could be anything. It could even be your own property, your own house, your own asset, car, so on and so forth. And just so you know as well, KL City, yes, they have come up right now as well. They're actually, you know, I would say up for a strategy to enhance its shade tree management plan and preparing new guidelines for managing old and high-risk trees. And this is expected to be completed in July. But as this topic as a whole, urban tree management, right? Why are we even talking about urban tree management? What's in for you and I? Why should we know about this? MEOR, please bring it out.
Hence why we have an expert together with us. She's together with us online. We have the President of the Institute of Landscape Architects Malaysia, Associate Professor, Landscape Architect, Dr. Nur ATIAH Ismail. Dr. Nur ATIAH, thank you so much for coming on to the show, wherever it is that you are. Coming to the topic at hand, as what myself and Brandon has actually mentioned, it is the biggest news right now for the past couple of weeks, couple of months, due to the weather, due to the conditions of the trees itself. Please enlighten us. Why has this been happening and why has this been in the spotlight recently?
Yeah, thank you so much, Brandon, and also MEOR for having us, the Institute of Landscape Architects Malaysia. And this is actually a very sad news that we have to share together. But when we talk about aging just now, yes, I have to agree that some of the trees in Kuala Lumpur are also going through this aging process, and they are called heritage trees as well. But on the other aspect, MEOR and Brian, if you want to know how old is the city, look at the trees in the city. That means the older the trees, the older the city is. So in this case, that goes into our topic today. Why do we need to manage them? Of course, there are fatal accidents happen, causes by the fallen trees in the past few months, and also past few weeks. And of course, we do not want this tragedy to happen again. But I believe that the stakeholders and those who are into these areas are doing their best somehow, some way to keep our environment, our landscape spaces safe for each and everyone. So, but on the other side is that blaming the trees alone is not necessarily being done, right? In fact, we have to cut all the trees because of the fatal accidents that happen. So these are the point where we have to sit down, be calm, and mitigate the best for our heritage trees or the old trees or even all the trees that we have in the city centre.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, truth be told, right, the trees were there before we started living in those particular areas. They've been there for years, and now we populated their area, and it's just not fair that we just say, you know what, the tree is old, chop it down. Urban tree management comes back down to livability of a particular city, a livability of a particular town, you know, that brings about fresh air, you know, good air quality, so on and so forth. But I mean, MEOR and I, we are just normal citizens. So what can we actually do? How do we identify aging tree and what can be done to ensure our safety?
All right. This actually, when it comes to this topic, this is a call for the community and public to also participate, to identify any differences that they found in any of the trees in the city centre. Because, for example, nowadays we are using public transport. So we pass through the rows of trees and suddenly we found there's something which is not usually happen to the trees, and the decay, for example, or the fallen trunk or the yellowish leaves, So those are the what we call the factors that triggers that the trees wanted to say that, hello, look at me, I am sick, or maybe I am dying. So what we need here is basically the community to learn, to aware, and also to participate, to record, and also submit the report to the local authority so that things can be done at that moment rather than waiting for tragedy to happen. Then only we take responsibilities and everybody tends to be panicked. So I believe that nowadays this tragedy is a call for everybody to participate. We cannot blame anyone, as the trees are important for us, right?
Yeah.
So in fact, like what Brian mentioned just now, the tree planting strategy in Malaysia started way in 1990s, right? During the colonial era, even until now, and with the process of a beautiful garden city, right? So we plant lots of trees, and in fact, to me to say that this is a very good effort by the government and also the local authority to make sure that Kuala Lumpur is a green city. Look around us, and not many cities especially in Asia Pacific region has lots of green space as how we have in Kuala Lumpur, for example. But of course, greeneries come with lots of challenges, mitigations, and maintenance. So we could not expect that trees can just live on its own and be there forever, right? Even concrete has to be maintained. What more the trees, which is the living creatures, and of course they are giving us lots of benefits that we couldn't mention by numbers or by names. There are lots of benefits the trees and environment gave to us for us to continue our living.
Of course, it's very important. As anyone out there would obviously know, it is important for us to have some greeneries wherever it is that we are, as we have learned during our school time,
days.
Photosynthesis, you breathe in oxygen, and then the carbon monoxide that we releases goes into the trees, and the cycle goes on and so forth.
Not bad, you can remember.
Yes. It's not about aging, obviously, but I do want to ask you, Doctor, it is also, as you mentioned, again, at the end of the day, people such as Brandon and myself and the people out there, we should be more proactive in reporting such cases. Should we actually observe, should the tree is aging, should it looks funny or whatnot, but ultimately, obviously, it falls under the responsibilities of the municipal councils, may it be, in the city areas or suburban areas or rural areas for that matter. Now, what are the standard operating procedures, or should I say the standard practice that any municipal councils out there, when they do all this checking, when they do all of this, tree trimmings or whatnot, they obviously have a timetable or so for them to be able to identify from the get-go, all right, this tree is soon to be so-and-so within the next 3 or 4 months. Share with us your opinion on that.
Thank you so much, MEOR, for that question. In fact, I would like to share the programs or activities happen, for example, in Dewan Bandar Kuala Lumpur, where they already have their own maintenance programs, and also what we call it the specialists of trees, to go through and to somehow look after each of the trees that we have in Kuala Lumpur, for example. But there are lots of characteristics of the trees that we can see, whether it is physically or biologically, where the tree started to show some symptoms. For example, they have some fungi infection, and then they will show some diseases or pest infections. So you can see the real condition of the trees were not really good, and these are basically some of the this is the best time for the specialists to go through and look into the real health condition of the trees. But sometimes, being in the tropical countries, all those trees are already under the monitoring of the local authority. It is just that certain of the climatic and also natural conditions might also make things happen to earlier. For example, the lightning and also the heavy storms, the heavy rains. So those are also the causes that somehow, some way affect the stability of the trees, and the trees are more susceptible to fallen during the harsh seasons. So one is to take care of the trees, and the other aspect is to look at the climate conditions at the moment, which I believe globally we are facing the climate change and a very vast differences of climate conditions from time to time. And the other thing is that the human factors, which is constructions that happens without really considering the trees, right? And then we expand the land users, we expand the road, we do lots of constructions, and we didn't realize that they're also living things, right? And they've been affected, but they cannot scream like us, a human being. So this is the factors which I believe the maintenance should be ongoing as what has been scheduled. But the other thing is that the climate conditions, that means the meteorology data has to be supported together with the maintenance of the trees in the city center. And the thing is that the database where the community can also participate, they can report, they can record, and they can also monitor what has been done or what are the mitigations that has taken place for each of the trees that they have been reported. So what I would like to say here is that everything is involved here, which is the stakeholders with their mitigation and management plan, the database, meteorology, and also the IT that we need to keep on ourselves updated. And the other one is the community who actively passionate about keeping the trees and making sure that the trees are safe at all times. So these are basically the call for everyone to come together. And as a landscape architects, we will continue to pledge, we will continue with our principal foundation is that to give the best green to everyone, because we cannot live without greeneries. Greeneries has lots of benefits for us.
That's right, Dr.
And also
ATIAH.
for anti-aging as well, right?
Of course. I mean, like, you need trees to live, a healthy life.
That's
obviously,
right. Dr. ATIAH, if only if it's possible for you to actually show us your house around, it'd be great.
I assume that you live in a jungle now because loving the trees. Oh, no, of course not.
Dr. ATIAH, don't go anywhere. But of course, we just discussed a lot about tree management and how it's important that we keep them safe. Now, Doctor, your advice that you can share, not just to us, but those who are tuning in, how do we keep ourselves safe? Knowing the fact that, okay, there are huge trees around us, and you have actually told us that you need to identify the trees that are aging or probably, too much fungi is happening around the tree, the bugs turn a bit greyish and the leaves turn yellow. That's when you need to be careful. But what else is there that we need to take into consideration to make sure that not just our property are safe, but we are also safe?
Okay, so I believe for professionals, there are lots of things that need to be done. We just look at our green spaces as a whole. And I mean, we need to have our green networking and green linkages so we can improve on that. And for the government policy is to increase the green spaces because this, what we call it, the root system requires what we call sufficient land, sufficient area for them to grow. So we cannot just have the grey foundations for them all the times. So we need to now look at the importance of increasing the needs of 10% green space to maybe 30% of green space to allow the trees to survive and to live longer. Right? Because we have to remember the older the trees, the better for them to work, to absorb carbon dioxide, to absorb the pollutions and to provide more oxygen for us. So we are depending on this, on them, Brian, and also MEOR. So we're depending on them for us to continue living. So in that case, I would like to also invite all the community to involve this in urban tree management. I remember last time we were talking about the tree planting campaign that has been with us for the past 10 years maybe. So now we should start a new campaign, which is how to take care of the trees.
Exactly. It is very important for us to really understand on how to take care of our trees. Very important.
Because we need public to come and join us with the public awareness campaign, planting programs, and also educational and initiatives.
Let's shout it out from the trees and make sure people know about this particular noble thing. Thank you so much, Associate Professor Dr. Noor ATIAH Ismail, President Institute of Landscape Architects Malaysia. Thank you so much for coming on to the show.